Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I want to talk about things that are important for every single language learner, regardless of your method or your strategy for learning a language. And if you go out there and you look at opinions on the best way to learn a language, what's the best method? How do I do things very quickly? You're going to get a lot of different opinions. And while there are methods out there that are more efficient than others, that are better than others, there are cases where it's really hard to determine whether one thing is more effective than the other. And that being said, too, people have their preferences, and in the end of the day, people are probably going to do what they want to do, right? Even if it's a little bit, inefficient. So I think that what is kind of useful to talk about, though, is not just, analyzing every single specific method on how to approach a certain aspect of language learning, but to talk about things that are kind of useful for every language learner, no matter your method, what app you're using, how you're approaching things. And so probably the biggest thing, in my opinion, with all of language learning is, the biggest thing that you can do for yourself is vocabulary acquisition. Learn a ton of words. Words are the building block for fluency in any language. So if you know a lot of words, you have the capability to do many different things. So if you have a large vocabulary, the more words that you know, the better that you can express yourself, right? The more elegantly you can express yourself because you can talk about different things. You know a lot of verbs, you know a lot of adjectives, a lot of nouns. If you have a large vocabulary and you keep learning more words, you can read more and more things, more difficult things. You can read with more ease. If you know a ton of words and you keep learning words, you can enjoy listening content better. You can enjoy more difficult listening content. So no matter your strategy, no matter your method, always make vocabulary acquisition a critical component in your language learning, right? And you're going to see the different advocates, right? You're going to see the flashcard system. You're going to see like heavy reading. People are obviously going to learn words through something like a beginner app. And there are going to be more efficient methods out there, but regardless, always try to focus in on vocabulary acquisition, right? Always ask yourself, how can I learn words quicker? How can I have more fun learning words? So make vocabulary acquisition a very critical component in your language learning. No matter what language you're learning, no matter what method or way you're going about things, try to make vocabulary acquisition a very critical component, no matter what you're doing, where you're at, right? It's obviously going to change depending on what skill level you're at, but vocabulary acquisition is super critical. The second thing that I think is very important for every language learner is routine and consistency. So, when you're learning a language, I think that being consistent really helps you out a lot. It helps you just to learn things a lot more effectively. So just like a good example of this would be, if let's say you're learning vocabulary words via flashcard apps, right? If you are consistent every single day, you're probably going to learn those words a little bit quicker than if you're sporadic about learning vocabulary. Same goes for reading, right? If you are reading constantly, you're going to see those common words again and again, and you're going to pick them up quicker versus if you sporadically read. Or with listening content, if you're listening a lot, you're going to see that gradual improvement, or you speak consistently, you're going to get that gradual improvement. So I think that consistency really helps a lot in terms of just being a little bit more efficient in the learning process. But not only that though, because learning a language takes so long, you really do want that consistency that's going to help you to keep making progress, to keep you motivated with those results. But then it's just important because it takes so long to try to take things gradually, to keep going along the way, right? Rather than taking, multiple, month-long breaks where you're having to, brush off the cobwebs and then, relearn the things that you already had learned, right? So that consistency, it's overlooked, right? I think that you really want to try to be as consistent as you possibly can, establish your routine, and go from there, right? It can really help with your learning, but also just to overall make more progress, in the end of the day. Another thing that I think is super important, and I think is a lot of times often overlooked, is to have fun in your language learning. Because, once again, learning a language to a high skill level takes a long time. So you want to have fun in that process. Or if you're not there yet, you want to have a goal of getting to a place where you're having fun. And obviously at the beginner stages, your flexibility to do that is limited. But you should at least still have a goal of trying to get to that place, right? And so fun and compelling activities could be reading in a foreign language, be listening to podcasts or Netflix shows, having conversations. So, definitely be incorporating those activities in your language learning because, because it takes so long, you really do want to have fun. You want to enjoy this process. But another point on that I think is very important is to, really take a very close look at those fun activities that you're doing, right? While people might consider reading a fun activity, don't just if you can help it, don't just read some random newspaper, right? Like maybe you don't want to read the news. Maybe you're interested in cars or you're interested in technology. Read about that in the language that you're learning. Pick subject matters that you want to read about, right? Don't just read the newspaper because reading is a compelling activity and it's a good way to learn, right? If you want to read the news, awesome. But read the things that you want to read, right? Same goes with Netflix shows. Don't just put on, if you can help it, a random Netflix movie or Netflix series that you don't want to watch. It can really help that this is a show that you want to watch and you're going to try to watch it in the language that you're learning. Or look at YouTube channels on subject matters that you're interested in, whether that's technology, video games, whatever it is. Or have conversations about subjects that you want to talk about, right? It's not just have conversations with people. Try to make it also about your interests. Like what do you find interesting? What is fun to you? And then incorporate that into reading and listening and speaking. Right. Once again, I think that activities like watching Netflix shows, reading are fun and compelling activities that you eventually want to have. But that kind of second component that's very important is to really make sure that you're reading things that you want to read, or at least you're trying to get to that place. And sometimes you could be reading something and it's just a little boring or it's a little bit too difficult and your fun and enjoyment is starting to wane with reading. And sometimes it's really just about picking another thing to read, another book to read, a new newspaper, a new subject matter, because like you can get burned out from those subjects. So look at incorporating fun activities into your language learning and just really make sure that you look at what are you interested in and try to incorporate that into those compelling activities, such as through listening content, reading, conversations, etc. And then the last thing that I want to talk about in terms of something that's valuable for every language learner is goals. So, if you notice with kind of the things that I brought up, a lot of them aren't necessarily directly related to language learning. They are kind of these supportive aspects, and goals is one of those, right? If you know where you're going, if you know what you want to achieve, it makes things a lot easier in the long run. You know what you need to work on. You have accountability measures that you have to kind of reach every week, every month with how many words you need to learn or how much time you want to spend with the language. Goals can be super, super huge in terms of just staying motivated and making more progress and keeping yourself accountable, right? It's very hard to track your progress in language learning. So if you can kind of measure your progress, track your progress, look at goals and try to achieve them, it will help you, I think, in a lot of ways to be motivated, to stay consistent with a routine, and overall make more progress. So, if you don't have goals already, set goals. So kind of looking at the, entire picture, no matter, what your method is, no matter what your strategy is, focus on vocabulary acquisition. Establish consistency in a routine. Have fun in your language learning and have goals. If you do those four things, I think no matter what strategy you're using, no matter what method or language you're learning, those kind of four things will help you a lot in the end of the day. So that's what I had to say. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.